we might have a slight disagreement on Rupert Lowe. How do you feel about Rupert Lowe at the moment?
That Rupert Lowe is our Trump. And when I hear that, I think, well, I don't want that then. I don't want some like trust fund billionaire building his kind of base off right-wing populism. It's really like I've seen this movie before.
They're not like Islam. Islam is a very obvious threat, whereas Judaism was much more clever. Everything has really been for the betterment of their people. There hasn't been, any real benefits for the West.
I think that this whole war is kind of like part of the New World Order, depopulation, and remove the strongest men to fight back. We can actually organise.
Everyone's aware of AIPAC. Everyone's aware that a lot of these politicians are paid off. Trump, of course, he's good friends with Epstein.
Nobody said that we were going to be a minority in our own country or that we were going to be replaced. We can't really vote our way out of it because we never voted our way into it. This is the Kalergi plan, I would say.
Before we begin, as a special favour to me, could I ask that you subscribe to the channel? It costs you nothing but means the world to us. Recently, YouTube was nice enough to delete our old account. But fortunately, that hasn't stopped us. In fact, we're more determined than ever, and that's why we need your support. Anyways, enough from me. I hope you enjoy. Reece, pleasure to finally talk, mate.
Thank you very much, yeah, and you too. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of briefly chat just then, but like yourself, I am kind of interested in the conspiracy side of things. And now that a lot of things are getting exposed, we are at just this point in history where conspiracies are all getting revealed. It is intertwining with politics, and we can all kind of see it for what it is.
Yeah, and we're starting to realize that the realities of the world are a lot more sinister and depraved than we would ever have liked to believe. And especially the older generation, I think they would find it very difficult to come around to that. Everything that they've really believed has turned out to be a lie. That's kind of what I would define as the simulation. When I say we live in a simulation, it's kind of we have this created reality for us, or curated, I should say. And we listen to the medical advice or the food advice, or we vote for the politician that we think speaks for our interests. But in truth, it's all kind of planned in advance, it seems to me. It seems like we're kind of just watching a film, if you like.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, when people talk about the Matrix, I mean, it should, in like the boomers' defense, let's say, they didn't have the advantage that we have, which is the internet. So they have literally just been propagandized for their whole life. And don't get me wrong, there are those few which kind of saw through the bullshit, but they were also in a system where they would get hammered. You're much more likely to lose your job. You'd be outed by the paparazzi or whatever, and that's kind of your life over. Whereas now, at least, even if we get outed, we've still got our tribe. We still have people that kind of see through the bullshit and all the rest of it.
Yeah, and there's also a willingness to kind of look the other way these days, like a willingness to sort of say, well, or if you have like sort of controversial opinions, it's like, well, you're just practicing your free speech. And yeah, no, I agree with you. Like these, the older generation, they grew up on, TV and print newspaper. They didn't have the internet. If you wanted alternative information, it was still books, which are approved books, approved information. And so I would say, yeah, no, it's totally understandable. Now we have the internet, it's kind of all unraveling. And sometimes I think that that's maybe a conspiracy in itself. Maybe they want us to kind of understand. But yeah, and as I say, I think the generation divide is so wide now. It's so huge because the younger generation are willing to accept that the elites are maybe Satan worshippers who practice child sacrifice and seek to, depopulate them and, give them smart cities and turn them into an AI dystopian technocrat city. And then the boomers are kind of just thinking, well, there's a bit of a bad economy, maybe there's been some bad economic decisions, you know what I mean? So especially certain people in certain neighborhoods. So when you come down for dinner at Christmas, the conversations have got to be crazy. So I remember at least when I spoke to my cousin was talking all kinds of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, especially, it's when you have the reason why so many more people are willing to entertain these conspiracies. COVID was the big one. There was so much more government overreach, and we just saw a lot of our freedoms taken away. This is like the first big realization where it's like, oh shit, this stuff is real. Government can do this stuff if they want to. And when you looked into, just how dangerous all these drugs were, how there was just so much manipulation through fear to try and control people. Yeah. I mean, that was the big wake up call. But now things are just getting more insane. Like you were saying, the Epstein files does kind of give a hint at just how evil and satanic these people are. But to jump right into it, we might have a slight disagreement on Rupert Lowe, but I enjoy you do good research. So how do you feel about Rupert Lowe at the moment?
So, in summary, I would say that this party is a Trojan horse party, similar to how I would have described Reform UK, in that it's right wing populism, or rather, it's deep state globalist authoritarianism in England disguised as right wing populism, to kind of work for the people. And I would say that because of Rupert Lowe's very questionable history and his questionable investments and his very, very questionable endorsements, this party is one that people should stay away from. And it's something, and it's just like Reform also, it's something that people shouldn't get their hopes up in and believe that this is some kind of savior and that these people are going to, kind of enter the rigged casino, enter the rigged game of Parliament, and then make their lives exponentially better. Because I think that the likelihood is they will start working for people like Elon Musk. They will start working for the deep state. So I can go into specifics about why I think that, but yeah.
I guess to start off with Rupert, I think all of that might be true, right? Like worst case scenario, you could be completely right on everything. I still think that the overall good of having someone who's got this ethno-nationalist stance, who is pushing the country, at least in that direction, bare minimum, right? It could add to the collectivization of our people. And I mean, what's the alternative to you? What do you think is the best way forward with that?
So my alternative would be outside of politics and kind of galvanizing the masses to take matters into their own hands non-violently. We've seen people like Wild Minds or TikTok. There's a TikTok account called Wild Minds. Don't know if you know about it, but they effectively went off grid and they have their own land and they use solar panels and they have, they have their own water supply and they make, crops and they grow crops. They have, a farm where they raise their kids, away from the school system. And I think that when you start to diagnose the problems of society, you start to realize that there aren't any political solutions because the problems didn't come from politics. Like, for example, the General Education Board in America was established in 1903 by the Rockefellers, and that made it so that the children became workers rather than thinkers. And therefore, they don't really know how to think critically. They don't really know how to analyze things, and they are just there to work, there to be slaves. That doesn't really get solved in politics. That's just you have to take your kids out of school, or you have to tear down the whole entire education system. When we talk about mass migration isn't a political problem because nobody voted for it and nobody said that we were going to have mass migration, really. Nobody said that we were going to be a minority in our own country or that we were going to be replaced. And so we can't really vote our way out of it because we never voted our way into it. This is the Kalergi plan, I would say. So make new societies and withdraw from the current one and don't comply, and then take the power back and put it in our hands via, because you're going to have money and you're going to have donations, hopefully, because if you can galvanize enough people, then you're going to have millionaires that want to contribute to a new society, then you can have donations there. You can potentially make it so that family farms are actually affordable and then people are eating good and things like that. But before all of that, really, you have to have a diagnosis of the problem. That's what I would say is most important, diagnosing the problem and also getting people to want to diagnose the problem, because really we've got people who kind of prefer, as we were speaking about just a moment ago, who prefer to kind of live in ignorance or at least who are in ignorance because they have to be. So once you get them to diagnose that problem and collectivize under this idea, because I do agree with the idea of collectivism, but collectivize under this idea that there aren't political solutions and we got to take power back ourselves and it's kind of in our hands.
Yeah. I mean, to the people who never wanted to get involved in politics and, kind of had the blinkers on, just ignoring everything, it's like the frog boiling analogy, gradually boiling, getting worse and worse, but you don't notice it because it's just a small gradual change. Mm-hmm. We're now at the point where it's just steaming hot and no one can really avoid it. Like the old saying, you don't have to care about politics, but politics cares about you. And I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, I spoke to Mark Collette, and he is a guy, he was, under the BNP. both him and Nick both have this stance that you can't change this politically. So your diagnosis is completely correct. And these are the closest people who were representing the ethno-nationalist stance, who actually had a shot of becoming prime minister and all the rest of it. They have the same opinion of you. However, when I think like strategically, Lowe is still the best shot. Like I think it needs to be this like two-pronged attack where we do vote politically, because if we just kind of black pill and like pull out completely, that will mean who's going to go into political power? Most likely the Greens. They have an open border stance. And even if Rupert only kicks out one person and he has stronger borders or whatever he does, he might even just be, for the deep state, I don't know. But if he was to even do a little bit of change, one, I think it would boost morale. And two, it's a better option than the Greens. So at least like that alone should be worth it. At the same time, I don't want people to just be, I've done my vote, now we can relax, I've done my bit. No, I want people to still collectivize. I want this. We've also got the Woodlander project, which is the same thing as what you're talking about. I spoke to Eric Orwell, who's in America. He's done Return to the Land. And, so I think we need these two things. We vote politically and we collectivize. We have these projects which are going on where we can all grow our communities, and there's going to be more social cohesion, that when the politician who represents us steps out of line, we're going to have way much more of a voice if we are collected, and we can hold these people accountable so much more easy than if we're just all individual and we're scattered around the country and, all of that.
Yeah, so I do see what you're saying. I think this is a reasonable argument. What I would say is that I don't really see why I should believe Rupert Lowe would deport loads of people anyway. And my reasoning for saying that is because he's saying it. He's saying it, so that doesn't really... Do you know what I mean? Like,
let's go through some of the criticism of them, just so I understand.
Well, so my biggest thing, I would say, as far as taking rhetoric seriously, is investments in net zero companies like Auto Energy and Kona Energy. And by the way, this is kind of one thing in itself, but these energy companies are looking for investors that share the net zero vision. So when Rupert Lowe is investing in those companies, it's it's like a major red flag. Why are you against net zero so much? Why are you investing in these companies? Rupert Lowe was obviously a co-director of Dig Me Fitness alongside Rishi Sunak's wife, and this company was a failure. Rupert Lowe was also the chair of Southampton, which was a failure, and I don't know really how he even got into being the chair of Southampton. And this guy is somebody who is endorsed by Elon Musk and is a Zionist and endorsed by Tommy Robinson. And so when we say, well, he's going to deport loads of people, well, that's something that he's saying. That's something that Donald Trump said. That's something that the Conservatives said. That's something that a lot of politicians say. And generally speaking, it seems to me that they galvanize and they get the vote. They gain the vote. We're going to deport these people. They kind of weaponize your concern, and then they get in, and then they just are totally Zog. Or if they're not Zog, then it doesn't really matter. They're working for somebody else. And I think that that's the most likely outcome. If you take the rhetoric alone, just the, investments in net zero companies whilst being against net zero, kind of, you can't really take them seriously. But the endorsement from Elon Musk also, well, is Elon Musk a deep state billionaire that wants to put you on universal basic income and could easily help us out if he really wanted to, with making new societies? But no, he's actually, yeah, that is what he is, right? He's not exactly the savior of the white man. He's not concerned about the white race. If he was, he would have been he would have been doing anything about the situation in South Africa, which he wasn't. He was just bankrolling Donald Trump. And so, I mean, and the endorsement from Tommy Robinson, I would say, speaks for itself. So, yeah, I think that the point is an interesting one, and I agree with Nick Griffin, especially when he talks about Zionism. I completely agree. I think we're a colony of Zionism, and this guy is a Zionist, and he's endorsed by Zionists. So, and I spoke with you, Anthony, and this is the last thing I'll say. I know I'm on a bit of a tangent here, but part of the vehicle to ensuring that you have sovereignty and ensuring that you can not become a replaced species and not become a replaced people cannot be working with people that want that for you. And that's what I deem Elon Musk to be, and Tommy Robinson to be, and therefore Rupert Lowe to be.
Yeah. Yeah, like I get it. I mean, all I would say is if he's been endorsed, I don't think Rupert's actually publicly said like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have Tommy Robinson on the team or Elon Musk. I mean, I could be the worst person in the world and then support Rupert. It doesn't mean like he's got any affiliation to me whatsoever, right? So if I was to give him grace, I mean, we don't know. And at the moment, I still think, like you were saying with Farage, I've got no trust in the guy. When he's going to Davos and stuff, like I'm certain he's I mean, and he's also super pro Israel, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was the thing actually I'm most concerned about when it comes to Rupert Lowe is in the past he did have a pro Israel stance. That's kind of changed a bit recently, and I know with Tommy Robinson, I saw an interview. Was it an interview or was it a tweet? Saw anyway. He was saying that he wants to make sure Rupert has a pro civic nationalist stance essentially, to which I don't think there was a response. So I do kind of hold hope out for Rupert in that way. And even though this is years before he had that pro-Israel stance, he hasn't had that since. And actually recently I think he did do a tweet against it. So I don't know. I'm not going to vouch for the guy. I don't know him, At the same time, I still think he's the best hope. He is probably going to be the person I would give my vote to.
Yeah, no, honestly, I understand all of this, and I want to back Rupert Lowe. I agree with a lot of the Restore Britain policies, and I think there's probably some really good people in the party, and I want to back them. I want to give them my support, especially because of the popularity. Because if you go against them, then people are going to really vilify you, and they don't want you to say that. But with regard to that, so on that point though, I would say that he bootlicks Elon Musk. Like, I don't know if even bootlick is probably an under exaggeration, but it's like he'll go into Parliament and say that we owe Elon Musk a great deal of thanks because of the fact that he gave us free speech. But this whole idea that Elon Musk gave us free speech with X, I think is totally ridiculous, because just because this billionaire buys a social media platform, that doesn't mean we have increased or decreased free speech. And even if X, X isn't even a free speech platform, because you still get censored on it, people still get shadow banned on it, you still can't say certain things about a certain group of people on it. And Elon Musk is very close with Tommy Robinson. He appeared at Tommy Robinson's rally on the 13th of September, and he's always endorsing Tommy Robinson. Elon Musk is. He's always promoting him. He's always, kind of retweeting him, boosting his X account. And as a result, I feel like this is kind of a triangle, sort of Elon Musk, Tommy Robinson, and Rupert Lowe. So I think that this part of the triangle is inevitably going to find some common ground, find an agreement, and therefore the party is civic nationalist and Zionist. And then on the Zionism part, I mean, I don't really see any evidence that he is anti-Zionist. His post about the Iran war was a masterclass in pandering and fence-sitting, in my opinion, because he said that we shouldn't be getting involved because it's not Britain first, which is kind of maybe pandering to us, maybe me and you. And then there's the pro-Israel sort of Muslim faction of his base, which he was also pandering to by saying, well, we have no military. Our military isn't built up enough. Well, if Somalia was asking us to help invade Nigeria, would we tell them that our military isn't up to scratch, or would we just say no because it's ridiculous? I would say that you wouldn't need to talk about the military. And so, yeah, I would say that was kind of a masterclass in sort of fence sitting there. So, yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to be too negative. I know it's very negative, and but and I wish the best for them. I really do. But yeah, this is kind of just the way that I view it. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I get it, because when we look at what Rupert's standing for, he's hitting all of the points which people who are paying attention want to hear, right? And 2016, this is exactly what Trump did. He's the outsider, he's the rich billionaire. He does that speech, I don't want your money and I don't need your money, right? Mm-hmm. This is what everyone thought was amazing. He's going to clear the swamp. And what did he do? He ended up being like the most pro-Israel president that's ever existed, ever, right? And just, when you look at what's happening...
Some of his tweets are unbelievable. He used to say Obama's going to bomb Iran because he thinks he's a tough guy. It's crazy.
Yeah, dude, tell me about it. We're at the precipice of World War III, and his loyalty to Israel has not moved an inch. It's scary. So is Rupert going to be Trump number two? There is those elements to it.
Well, in Tommy Robinson's words, he is our Trump. He went on an interview and Tommy Robinson said that Rupert Lowe is our Trump. And when I hear that, I think, well, I don't want that. Then I don't want some like trust fund billionaire, who works for like exclusively, getting into power, like building his kind of base off right wing populism. It's really like I've seen this movie before. So yeah, I mean,
so does that mean you're going to pull out politics completely then?
So I think what people should do is kind of dip into politics and then bring people out with them. Because if you start on the conspiracies and you never talk about politics, you're only going to appeal to the conspiracy crowd who already know there's no political solutions. So I think what's the best course of action is for intelligent people to understand politics and begin to explain why this will work or why this won't work, and then gather an audience that is kind of mainstream, and then withdraw them and say, look, we don't believe there are actually any political solutions. Kind of like Nick Griffin, and how he did that. Kind of went into politics and did loads of investigations and exposed loads of stuff, and then came to the conclusion, we're cooked. We need to make new societies. We can't do anything in politics. It's a rigged game. So yeah, I would say something like that. I would say is probably what people like us could do.
Well, yeah, I mean, but like, okay, so to fully kind of exit society, right? That means you have to be completely self-sufficient, right? We need to have the land, we need to be able to build on it, and all these things, which the government is just going to fight you every single step in the way. At least if we had someone like Rupert in there, because of how he's built his image and because of his base, we have more sway with him. We can hold him accountable. Like, okay, I thought you were meant to represent us. Well, we want X, Y, and Z. Whereas we wouldn't have that same political power if someone like Polanski was in. He wouldn't care less about us, right? He's all about the minorities, open borders. He even said that he's going to make all the illegals legal, right?
Mm.
So, when I think about,
Well, I certainly would take Rupert Lowe. I think. Oh, it's not certainly. I think I would take Rupert Lowe over Zac Polanski. I do see that point. Although, I kind of think about Americans right now on Truth Social, or like in the Republican base, or trying to. I don't know. I talk about quickly. So yeah, having your own society have to be self-sufficient. I mean, it has been done already, like to an extent, and it can be done. I think with investment and with the awakening of millionaires and people who have businesses, people who have hundreds of thousands, people who are on YouTube taking YouTube money or Twitter money, can kind of invest in these places, and you can even start coming up with different forms of trade. Back in the day, it was like whoever had the most cows was the richest. You can, nowadays it's whoever has the most fake fiat currency, right? So we could maybe start working on something different. People have spoken about banking systems that you can do, and yeah, you're going to have the government crack down on you. Some people have said to me that the government are going to come and just remove your land and they're just going to seize it themselves. And I thought, well, it's not really North Korea, but I mean, I guess if that's possible, then we really are cooked. Like, so this is kind of like, and then whilst you've got a right-leaning politician, well, I do maybe, but I would agree with that for a different reason, I think. And it would probably be because it would be an accelerationist point of view, which I would say, if you are an accelerationist, I would vote for Rupert Lowe, because
really more so than I feel Polanski is going to accelerate things way more.
So yeah, my logic is, let's look at America. If you voted for Kamala Harris in 2024 and she took you to war with Iran and the economy was still bad and there were like thousands of Indians and Chinese people coming over, you'd think we should have voted for Trump. And therefore in 2028, you're going to vote for JD Vance or you're going to vote for Donald Trump. So you've still got faith in the political solution by the time 2028 comes. But now they know that voting for Kamala Harris would have been worse or just as bad as Trump. And Trump has been really bad. So if 2028 comes, are you going to vote for the same Republicans? Doesn't really make sense. So in this country, if you vote for Zac Polanski, you're going to think, well, we should have voted for Rupert Lowe. And then you'll still have faith in the political system, and then you'll go to vote for Rupert Lowe the next time. Whereas now, if you vote for Rupert Lowe, No one's going to think, damn, we should have voted for Zac Polanski. Only the crazy people, only the Antifa. So, you know, so yeah, I would say if you kind of vote for Rupert Lowe, get your accelerationism, no one gets their change, then that can funnel people into the new society. They can say, well, fuck politics, you know what I mean? We're going to go get people into the new society because this isn't working, and we're not going to get Zac Polanski in. What are we, crazy? So, yeah.
See, like, well, I mean, but that's the thing. If you don't vote for anyone, the opposition will win, right? There's no question on that. I mean, if someone like Polanski went in, right, if he wins, then I think that's the morale of the right gone. It's like, okay, we are now, that's going to accelerate us to becoming a minority. If we couldn't unite when we had the numbers, we're not going to unite when well, we might unite, but are we going to be able to be enough of the force to fight back? But I don't think so. I think this is kind of like the last stand for politics. And really, this is like the wake-up call to collectivize. Like I say, if we had like both scenarios going at the same time, we vote for the person who's right-wing. Because, too, like, this world war is only going to perpetuate more people to us, to the West, right? And I think again, I think we have so many issues at home. I don't know if they're even going to suggest trying to do a draft or all the rest of it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. It would just accelerate our downfall even more so. But
yeah.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think it's possible when you look at the ethnic cleansing of Ukraine. You sort of think, well, they've drafted all of these men, the women have fled, and then you've got loads of moving into Ukraine, right? Now, I don't think that's going to happen here, but what we're seeing here is, with what we've seen with World War I and World War II, is the men are dying. The men die, and this is catastrophic for a civilization. The civilization is now more dependent on the state because you don't have some of your greatest men, some of your strongest and most determined men that have now gone into war and died and fought, and their judged bloodline is not going to continue. So you've got this now sort of, I don't know how you describe it, nocturnal. Well, it's not nocturnal, but these just we're already asleep, right? We've been asleep, but you've got now a totally docile, that would be a good word, generation or docile species, which is just primed to be replaced by robots and drip fed by the state, plant-based foods like lab grown meat and stuff like that. So I think that this whole war is kind of like part of the new world order, depopulation, and remove the strongest men who can fight back, who can actually organize and make or fight back against the system. Greater Israel, fulfill the prophecy. The white people are wiped out. You've got a browned Europe, a Kalergi plan, and you've got now smart cities, 15-minute cities. To be honest, I'm skeptical about the idea that we're going to be called up to fight, but that might just be my optimism. So,
well, I think everyone is so aware. Like, when you're talking about non-compliance, like, that is going to be the biggest fuck you from the people. I think, like, they can try it, but I think that's just such a non-starter. And like you were saying, I still have hope in our group, right? And World War I, World War II, maybe it got rid of some of the great men, which undoubtedly it did. But I think, when you look at the genetic stock, and I think it would be fair to say that above every other culture, Europe and the West is being attacked the most. And like, why is that? We have this long history of conquering. We have America, which are kind of like our cousins, really. They're still the same people. They're still our values, our people, and they are the strongest nation to have ever existed. The British Empire, the biggest empire that ever existed, even Rome, right? And when you see BB going around with, what are you reading there? Oh, it's against Rome, right? You saw this clip?
I didn't know.
Yeah, so he's reading a book against Rome, and a guy's asking like, oh, why are you reading that? And he says, well, we lost the last fight. We're going to win the next one, right? And, it should be said, too, that it's not like he's alone in thinking that. I mean, the prime minister of Israel saying something like that is wild on its own. But there are many people of that community which have a hatred for Europeans, not just because of Rome, where there's this historic resentment there, but obviously with World War II, right? There is many people in that community that are scared of us. So it's all these things that we got to be aware of. And I also think, why do we need to collectivize? Because it's not like I have any animosity to that group, even though there's a large proportion of them who are like calling for our downfall. But when you think about like how have they achieved that? That one of the greatest things that they have is because they are such a tribal people.
Yep.
They have truly collectivized, and because they've had so much adversity, they truly see themselves as more of a unit than we are. The more liberal we got, the more individual we got, and that has been our greatest downfall. So,
100%. The blood and tribal nature of this collectivism, this expansionism is, I would say, admirable, very much admirable. And whether you like them or not, whether you like what they've done or you don't, you have to kind of respect it. You have to say fair play, because these people are a persecuted people throughout history. I mean, kicked out of 109 countries for whatever reason.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not the biggest fan. Like, just so it's out there.
And neither. But so they're paranoid as well. They're a paranoid people. And I think a lot of these people, when they are young, they are indoctrinated with this idea that there was a genocide against them by the Europeans, and that we can never let fascism rise, or authoritarianism, or far-right individualism rise, or collectivism, because they're going to kill us. And we have to have Israel, because if that does happen, then we can just flee there, and Israel has the right to defend itself, and blah, blah, blah. So it's an easy sort of train of thought and indoctrination into the final, we believe in greater Israel, we need it, and if we don't have it, we're going to die and be genocided. And this is done, as I say, through blood, through true strong collectivism, through paranoia, and through really strong indoctrination and propaganda into the new generations and get them on board. Unfortunately, we can't do that. We don't really have a kind of... I mean, you could go off Christian genocides in the past, but we're not really collectivizing as Christians. We're kind of white Europeans. And as you say, we had the biggest empire in the world, and we were some of the most successful people in the world. So you could maybe say, well, look, we were the most successful people in the world in a given time, and now we're being fucked. Now we're a colony. We were the colonizers. Now we're a colony. Let's collectivize around that. But yeah, I mean, I think that, as I say before, Nick Griffin, when he talked about, I think it was Nick Griffin, when he talked about how we are a colony, how we serve to benefit Zionism, how we are a vassal state, or like you could say, and we effectively exist to serve them, same as America, right? And simultaneously we get destroyed so that they are strong and we are weak. There is therefore a global power, a global sort of one world, government, you could say, that resides in that country.
Yeah, well, I mean, and also, a lot of people, they know about Islam and they know about the doctrines within Islam. Like, there's a jizya tax and there is a hierarchy. Muslims are above Christians, are above, right? There's a superiority element there. The same thing within Judaism, right? So even if, even liberals in England, we get our culture, a large proportion of it has been from Christianity, a lot of our values. Even if you don't realize, even if you're not a Christian, you don't realize it, a lot of our values stem from that. It's the same thing with Judaism, right? When you think about the chosen people, they believe that they have a higher quality of soul, right, within the religion. And they believe that they are morally obligated to run the world, right? They believe that they are meant to be in these positions and they're meant to guide us, essentially. So it's not too much of a stretch that some people can take this superiority element of it. And when you look at Zionists today, they don't know anything about the religion, but they still call themselves the chosen people, right? So it's like we kind of... I also think, we have to take lessons from them. They are... I don't want to do all the sly stuff and worm my way into these institutions. I don't think there's any need for that. But what have they got that we don't? Well, they have really strong borders, right? That's an easy win. And they've kept it close to their religion. And I think that's been the thing which has propelled them to where they are today.
And they've got a reason to be proud of who they are. They've got a strong reason to identify with their tribe as well.
Sorry. And that's the thing too. We have had our education manipulated. We have many, many reasons to be proud of our culture. And yet, like you say, we are just known as the slave traders and the colonizers.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, yeah, and then on the contrary, the Jews are a persecuted minority that were kicked out of 109 countries because it was all of the 109 countries' fault. And with us, it's like, well, we're terrible colonizers, and we actually built up a lot of the world, and we gave a lot of the world really good democracy and good civilization, and yet we're the bad guys, we're terrible, and it's
Yeah.
I mean, that is essential in order to break down a culture and a people is to make them ashamed of their history, and in order to build the strong unity in a small culture is to make them proud and make them kind of paranoid as well and concerned, and make it so that they're forced to collectivize, make it so that they have to treat the next, even if they don't, or the next J, even if they don't like them politically, or if they don't, if they think they're the worst guy in the world, well, he's still a Jew, so I have to still, he's still, I have to still help him out and stuff like that. And I think this is how they get into these positions of power. You see like people like Barry Weiss on CBS News, like, why is she there? Well, it's because of her ethnicity, like, and the other things that people get put in these positions when they have no reason to be there. They don't deserve it whatsoever. They just are put there because they are seeking to benefit their tribe. So, yeah, and we are going to struggle with that because our people have been propagandized into believing that our tribe is responsible for some of the worst things in human history, which it really isn't. It's actually responsible for some of the best things. So,
Right. And it should be, if this is sounding a bit conspiracy to people, I mean, it should be noted, like, even if they aren't, it's not like all a part of this conspiracy. And that's not what we're saying at all. A lot of people take it that way, but that's not what it is. It's when you have that mindset, which is kind of promoted that there is a superiority element to it, that is going to naturally feed into their group. And then, just like everyone, you're going to have a spectrum. You're going to have left wing. You're going to have right wing. Like we look at Zac Polanski. He's not religious. He's a secular Jewish man. But all of his families, all of the Jewish families, they've been in these small little units within other countries. And like England, pre-World War II, we're 99% of the population, the white ethnic Anglo-Saxon. The 1% is like Scots, Welsh, and Irish, and it's like 0.5%. So as a group, if you put yourself into their situation, right, they have closed borders as a net negative, 100%, right? When you've got this like great 99% amount of people, there's going to be animosity, there's going to be hatred. They resist assimilation. There's different values, there's different cultures, there's different religions. There's going to be a natural hatred there, right? It's just what it is. It's human nature. So they benefit massively by having open borders. Right. And it's not just there. You can see that, in the UK, we have the Board of Deputies, which is a Jewish lobby. And that's one of their main policies that they push, open borders. And you see that also in America, the HIAS, Hebrew something A Society, HIAS. But anyway, you have these articles where it's like 1,000 rabbis, they can't agree on anything, but they agreed on open borders. For them, it is a net positive. For us, it is a net negative. It's only led to, less social cohesion, more crime, I mean, shit, I could go on. A bit of a tangent. But yeah, either way, it's been just a net negative for us and opposite for them.
Yeah, and I think that this was kind of by design because when you have a culture and a nation and a people that is not homogenous, it is easier to rise to the top when you're a minority. So when there's 50 different cultures as opposed to one strong culture that refuses anything else, one of the 50 cultures entering has got a much greater chance of rising to the top, and you've got the ability to get more of your people in, and you can rise in institutions. There's no discrimination against you in any given institution, and so you're able to exist in this state, which used to be strongly English culturally and as a people, but now is kind of just other, you could say, because it's got English, it's got this, it's got this, it's got this, it's got this, and therefore it's an other culture. So that's easier to rise to the top in because it's less cohesive, it's less homogenous. And so I think that was what their plan was. That was what their plan was in America, and that's what they did. There is a little bit of history about this kind of after World War II and how they got into the CIA, how they managed to become powerful in the intelligence agencies. It was effectively because there was in Russia and in Italy and in Europe and then in America who were kind of gaining information and therefore were able to trade that information for sort of positions of power. And then they were able to just allow more of their people to come in and take control. And people say this as I'm kind of talking about after World War II, but you can go back to 1666 and what happened with that. And I'm not going to go into that now, but people say that ever since then, that's when we haven't had freedom. People say that's when it really began. So again, it's not really animosity to any group of people. You don't really, because I think it's quite low IQ to prejudge people. Just because of whatever their ethnicity is, but it's also low IQ to refuse to recognize patterns. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to do both without being over the top racist and ridiculous in your views. You have to kind of be sensible about it, acknowledge the pattern, but also don't prejudge for no reason. So
yeah. Well, I think it's not like we have to move forward and hey, once you realize the pattern, once you realize what the game is, it's like, all right, listen, like this might be a benefit for your people. Is a direct it's a direct negative for us. So obviously, once you become aware of that, obviously you should resist it and to kind of put an end to it. And I mean, how far back do you go? Some people say JFK was the last real president, and when they've got into their positions of power, they're not like Islam. Islam is a very obvious threat, and it will be a very forceful. It will try and take over in a very obvious way.
It's naked.
Whereas, right, it's just like it is what it is. Whereas Judaism was much more clever. Well, the Jewish people, again, not all of them, but I feel like the amount of comments I get, like, why do you hate all Jews? It's like, dude, like obviously that's not what we're saying. But when you see that they've been lobbying for the right president to get in, or they've been lobbying for the right candidates which are going to support Israel, they've been sending crazy amounts of donations and money to that country. Everything has really been for the betterment of their people. There hasn't been, any real benefits for the West. So again, we just have to be aware of that. If we want to survive as a species, as a race, then we kind of have to put an end to it. But actually, what are your thoughts on Greater Israel?
Well, I think that Greater Israel is probably inevitable. Do you mean like, do I think it's going to happen, or do I want it to happen?
Well, where should we go? Because maybe there's, like you fully believe that they're gonna.
But I think they're gonna get to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and then they're going to maybe go. I think because I heard they want to go underneath it. They want to build the third temple. And I think this is kind of part of their prophecy and part of the Antichrist returning. So, I mean, I'm not really I'm not really a religious type, but I think that what will most likely happen is there will be the establishment of Greater Israel, a crackdown on anti-Semitism at the same time, so that can happen. The Iran thing is like kind of introducing a Rothschild bank and also gaining control of all of those resources and establishing a foothold into the Middle East, becoming the dominant country in the Middle East, making it so there's no opposition to them. And then slowly their proxies will start to help them build up government control in all of these different countries. There's going to be some idea where they say, well, look at all of these militant groups. They can't be trusted to run a country. Let the Americans do it. Look, America's going to come in and, make Middle East great again. And it's just going to be for the benefit of Israel, obviously. So I think that is their prophecy, and simultaneously the West is browned. And I will say, just on that, because I think your point is very good about how Islam is naked and Judaism is in a cloak, because these people will, and Nick Fuentes said it perfectly. I watched a clip of him on X where he said these will drape themselves in an American flag and put their arm around you and say, hey, we're going to elect Donald Trump and we're in this together. And then they cloak themselves. They work so well, and then they get Trump elected. It's just Zog. And so the threat with Islam is actually a lot more imminent. And then, honestly, because if you look at Albert Pike's prediction of the 3 world wars, he got the World War I and World War II very accurate, and I think World War III is also going to be very accurate. So then if you believe that Greater Israel is established and they have power over the Middle East, And then there's going to be some kind of political Islam, maybe, that rises alongside it, and then they mutually destroy each other. I don't know, but that's kind of what Albert Pike was going for. It looked like in his prediction. So, yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. Maybe that breaks out into World War III. You know,
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing's for sure: if Iran falls, then Israel is going to be the dominant force in that region. And because so many people in America are waking up to the fact that they are basically owned by Israel, there is like maybe it'll take a whole generation, but there is people actively trying to separate. You know, everyone's aware of AIPAC. Everyone's aware that a lot of these politicians are paid off. Trump, of course, you know, he's good friends with Epstein. You know, like it's not too far of a stretch to say like, oh, probably there's compromise on him, right? And yeah, and then even if you think about what the Jewish prophecy is, they believe that their Messiah will bring about world peace, but their Messiah will do it it's basically what the Bible describes as the Antichrist. And even if you're not religious, like there's just so many parallels where you're like, okay, from their perspective, you know, when you look at Larry Ellison, who was a big part of the digital ID, he teamed up with Tony Blair. Their whole thing was a complete surveillance state, and to scare people so much that they have to be on their best behavior, right? So in that sense, you know, you could achieve world peace, but it's not a world anyone realistically would want to live in.
It would be a depopulated world, and it would be one where the machines and the economies are AI powered, and the people that remain will be required to be on their best behavior, because if they don't, then they will basically not be able to exist in that society. And with these wars, you know, that's kind of what you're going to guarantee is depopulation, you know, displacement. When you think about displacement as well, this is a perfect way of merging cultures and making it so that one dominating culture doesn't exist anymore. And so, yeah, I mean, I could do more research into this prophecy because I'm not completely well versed on it. But this idea of the Antichrist returning, I would say it absolutely encapsulates AI, because I view AI.
Right.
If there is an Antichrist, it would be that. Peter Thiel loves the Antichrist. He loves AI. Elon Musk loves AI, and I believe that he's, you know, one of these weird people going to Epstein Island. So AI is the Antichrist returns or arrives. It's AI, and there's world peace because everyone is controlled by this technocratic system. I think, as you kind of alluded to there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'd say to anyone, read through Revelation, because, and even if you don't believe in religion or Christianity, Judaism, whatever, if they do, this is what they will aim for. This is what they're going to go for, right? So yeah, Revelation. There's a point where it's like the mark of the beast will be able to view everyone at all times. I forget exactly what it is, but when you think about AI, that's exactly what that system would be, right? And obviously, it would have a bias towards its owners and whatever. Sam Altman, Larry Ellison, like I said. So yeah, we'll see.
No, 100%. And I spoke about this before when I was speaking about digital ID on one of my live streams. I said that we are already complying with the new world order without even realizing, through Ring doorbells, smartwatches, and electric cars. And I said that because I do my job is one where I am at people's houses a lot, and so I see Ring doorbells all the time. And even if it's Ring or if it's a different one, cameras in front of the house. And all the time there is a electric car and a smartwatch, and that is the mark of the beast, right? That is all seeing. They see everywhere. You know, these Ring doorbells are everywhere. You saw there was an advert for Ring, I think, on the Super Bowl, and it was like, "Hey, you lost your cat? Well, don't worry, because everyone's got a Ring doorbell, so we can find it." It's like, oh yeah, that's why you want to put Ring doorbells everywhere, because people are losing their cats. Oh, my bad. I guess I'll stop being a conspiracy theorist then. You know, so Yeah, and then like smartwatches, they know everything about you, and they know what, kind of like predicting crime, but predicting health concerns, predicting when you're going to go into the NHS, and then electric car, you can't drive wherever you like, you have to drive in a certain region. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think people are kind of acquiescing without really even realizing.
Yeah, for sure. And then, while on Peter Thiel too, I mean, he's involved with the NHS. There's all the involvement he had with COVID as well. It's like, it's all there for people to see.
Well, yes, there's actually something I might. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it up, but I was doing this, and I can't get it right now. But I was doing this kind of connection thing where you sort of bring those connections together. And Peter Thiel, I actually started out with Brexit because it was kind of about who was involved with Brexit, and Brexit was kind of over here. And then I was aiming for Brexit to be in the middle, but it turned out that what was in the middle was actually Peter Thiel. And we're talking about GCHQ. Palantir got its start with the CIA and in the Middle East, like with Afghanistan and Iraq, and it's defense contractor in this country, and it's like with the NHS as well, and you think, well, it's not really a case of what is it doing, it's actually what isn't it doing. What isn't Palantir involved with at this point? What isn't Peter Thiel got his hand in? And you think, well, not much, because even you look at Facebook and Instagram, he was one of the mentors of Zuckerberg, and he was the first outside investor of Facebook, and he was part of the PayPal mafia alongside Elon Musk. Then they've got a relationship there, and it's like, wow, this guy's really, as I say, talk about the CIA. This guy is, very concerning. I would say Peter Thiel. He's like, he's kind of one of those billionaires that no one really sees, no one really looks at, but is because you kind of get Elon Musk, like they say, look at Elon Musk or look at Bill Gates, but there's really this crazy lunatic behind the scenes.
Yeah, he's definitely been brought into the spotlight a lot more, and people like Fuentes has done so many good pieces on him. But I guess there'll be no convincing you to vote for Rupert Lowe at all. Then
I won't be voting for Rupert. Well, the thing is, if he talks about weather manipulation and talks about how we're going to ban solar geoengineering, I would consider it. But the thing is, I don't think that's going to happen because Elon Musk has been involved with weather manipulation and solar geoengineering. So I highly doubt that's going to happen. Maybe it will, though. Maybe they'll just say it and then pander and then never actually do it. But the chances of me voting for Rupert Lowe are very low. Although I do wish them the best. And, I'll be voting because I don't know if you know the National Housing Party.
no, no,
Pat McGuinness. So the National Housing Party is like a Christian anti-Zionist party, and I spoke with Pat McGuinness, and I've spoken to Lawrence as well, one of their leaders. And these people are really good people. These people are against the establishment. They are anti-Zionist, and they're good people. I'd rather vote for someone like that. I'd rather vote for some kind of like third party that doesn't have like crazy backing. But I do wish the best for the party. I hope that I'm wrong, truly. And I don't say what I say for clicks and views, because if I did, I'd be doing the opposite. I'd be kind of going along with it. But I really do hope that people can kind of lobby them. Maybe I don't know.
yeah. But there's not been any like financial backing that we know of just yet, though, right?
Depends if if you look at it directly, no, but indirectly, I would say yes, because memberships are financial backing, and the membership numbers are so high because of the promotion on X. And I think that's Elon Musk amplifying it as well. So I think that you could say it's indirectly funded by Elon Musk. I don't think that's unreasonable, but we'll have to see. The funding is going to be interesting in the future. Sort of who puts their money there. What and where have they put their money before? People who invest in this company, or rather in this party, where have they put their money before? I think it'd be interesting to see. And hope, again, I truly hope that you get a lot of outside influence that is organic and that can steer the party towards the people and away from the deep state. I do genuinely hope for that. But as I say, if I had to vote, a National Housing Party was running in my constituency, I'd vote for them, or the Heritage Party, or an independent, because I couldn't vote for anyone else.
Oh, I mean, I get what you mean, but I just feel there's such a non-starter. It's almost like throwing it away, which means we saw in the Gorton by-elections, Greens steamrolled it against Reform. So I feel like they are the biggest threat. And just because of all the things that Polanski is trying to push, I mean, his economics too is just going to, like, everyone's complaining about the economy right now. No one's going to have any money after that. Like, I can almost guarantee that. What was the other one that he does? I mean, it's just a mess. It just looks like Iran all over again, the revolution. You know, he's got all of these Muslims in his party, despite being a gay Jewish guy, pro-trans. Like, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's clips of, like, people going up to the Green Party members who are Muslim, and they're like, well, what do you think about the LGBT stuff? You're okay with that? And, like, they all just stand there and stay quiet because they know they can't comment on it. And you just know that there's some kind of deception going on there.
Well, what I said about the Gorton and Denton by-election was that where the Green Party are thriving is that they have a base. And that's why you have gays and Muslims in the same party, because you've got gays who are woke and liberal and want to stand up for the LGBT stuff, and the Muslims just care about Palestine. They've got this anti-genocide leader, supposedly, who wants to see an end to who wants to see a two-state solution, and who is the most anti-genocide and anti-Israel politician in the UK. Supposedly, maybe you could say Jeremy Corbyn is, but they fumbled your party. So they have a very good base. They have a kind of they have something that you can attach yourself to, whereas Reform have nothing. But this is different with Restore. Restore have actually got a base. Reform haven't got a base. They're not tough on immigration. They're not an anti-establishment party. They're full of Tories. They're not woke, and they're not anti-genocide. They're nothing. They're a nothing burger, basically. So when you've got like a bit of a base, then you might actually be able to see some results in these by-elections. I mean, yeah, oh yeah, go on.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, on the point about worrying about the Green Party, my view is that the decision has already been made, and the election will be decided by the billionaires, as it normally is, via targeted ads and propaganda, which is kind of how we saw Brexit take effect, which was through Cambridge Analytica and Palantir propagandizing people on Facebook after creating profiles about them, and then they won it for them. So then I think if there's a candidate that the deep state want, then you're going to get propagandized into voting for them. They're going to pander to you. They're going to say everything you want to hear. And even if they can't get the votes, then they'll just rig it anyway, because elections aren't really real. So, you know, like kind of like what we saw in America, you know, Donald Trump's going to win easily. Yeah, we'll just rig it and give it to Biden. So, yeah. I would say don't worry about the Greens getting in, because I don't think they will. I really don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it could go either way. Like, because I think that the deep state is trying to push for a civil war. And I think there's so much money behind that. I think people like Tommy Robinson is just such a key component of pushing that propaganda. You know, he was just trying to rile us up against the Muslims for the longest time. Not that there isn't any credibility there, not that there's nothing to worry about, because I mean, we are different cultures, we are going to have different values, different ideals, but he's obviously just trying to stir the pot. And you know, when you look at the algorithms now, they are so much more pro-nationalism, where it's never been like that. So yeah, is this a sign that Rupert Lowe is kind of, you know, the guy who's going to, you know, be you know, the guy for the people? I don't know. But also, just on your point though, when you say about Islam just siding with Greens because Greens free Palestine and that stance, I think that is a concern for them, and they do care about that, obviously. But also, they care so much more about the open borders. Their main priority is to spread Islam over the world, and the best way they can do that is through how they've always done that, which is invading and taking over. You know, I mean, when you look at how many Muslims are in the political system, we got our London mayor. He's not anymore, but we had a Prime Minister of Scotland was Muslim. There is just this like slow creep of more and more. And I think they are just going to vote for the party which is pro open borders and, you know, pro their needs, really.
I would say they should go for Reform then, because I said this before. I said, you know, if you're a Muslim and you want to spread Muslim power, you should go through Reform. You got a Muslim London mayor candidate. You got a Muslim head of policy. I mean, Muslim chair head of policy. I mean, that's where I'd be going. And they're open borders also. So Yeah, I know. I see what you're saying.
I
Though. I
know
think, yeah,
they've changed, haven't they? They're now they've seen how popular Restore was, and they're trying to piggyback off that. But yeah, I don't think anyone believes them.
yeah. I mean, look, this is just Goyim polling at the end of the day. Like, do you like this party? Do you like this policy? You know, and then once they get that information, it's we're going to do this, or we're going to do this. So yeah, you know. I mean, with regard to the Green Party, yeah, I think there are Muslims there who want open borders, and so beginning to spread their ideology. Although I would say that predominantly it is anti-genocide or free Palestine people. I think that's what you get at these Antifa rallies as well. You get these Muslims there who will just they don't agree with anything that Antifa say at all, except that they're anti-genocide, and so because it's such a strong connection. It's such a strong sort of like orienting point. They attach to it, and they are sort of magnetized to it. So yeah, I think that Restore. I mean, to be honest with you, I think the best thing that Restore Britain could do would be to condemn Israel, because you're going to get the conspiracy theorists, you're going to get a lot of the people who are anti-genocide who want closed borders, because there are a lot of them. I mean, I know Muslims, I know Pakistanis who are like second or third generation who would absolutely love to see the border closed, because they are children of immigrants who came 30 or 40 years ago, and they don't want to they want to live in a white country. They want to live in England, so they want the border to be closed, and they are
Yeah,
also against genocide. So there is a big demand for a party that is closed borders and against this Zionist expansionism. So I think, obviously there's this pro-Israel faction of Rupert of Restore Britain, but I mean, Reform aren't going to do that, are they? I mean, and on the point you said before about how they changed their mind. I mean, the U-turn on the British involvement in Iran was crazy. I mean, that was just the most flagrant. Like, I don't even know what to describe it as. It's like, we don't have a democracy if you can just do that. If you can just say one thing and then the next week you're completely different. It's crazy. It's just mind blowing. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, hey, let's end it on a more cheery note, because I think we agree on the most part. I think we do need to collectivize. I think you're absolutely right that the minorities in the UK, which can see the situation for what it is, they don't want the endless immigration too. They know that it is just diluting the country, and it will go to a much worse, a much more violent place to live. No one wins, and there'll be less money. It's like, yeah, it's a lose-lose wherever you look. So I think I'll definitely be voting for Restore. And like you say, this collectivizing, going to these communities, I think the takeaway would be, if you haven't looked into the Woodlander, like, look into that, because that's our English equivalent of what Eric's doing in Return to the Land. But yeah, we need to kind of get serious about this stuff, and also, if we don't make these changes on an individual level, we're not really going to be taken seriously politically. People who are Islamic and stuff, say what you will about them, but they are way more collected than we are, and that is something that we could really learn from.
Yeah, they're organized, and as I say, I think they've got that kind of core ideology, kind of similar to what we we're talking about with the where they've kind of got that collectivism, they've got that tribalness or tribality, yeah. And so therefore they are able to overlook some point of view that their fellow Muslim might have, as long as they are a Muslim. And that's what we need to do also. We need to kind of galvanize the left and the right and get them to kind of collectivize and say, look, I understand, I understand you understand me. We're both white. We're both part of the masses who are being depopulated or replaced. We need to put our differences aside and start taking power into our own hands. Stop fighting with each other. Start to withdraw and not comply. And we're only going to be able to do that if we have this collective sort of tribal nature, and we need to do that, because otherwise we're not going to exist. Yeah, no, totally, man.
Yeah, well, and also I do think there is strength to Christianity too. And when you look at the families in the religion, when you look at religious families, they are always the ones who have the most kids. So that will be the next generation. They have more, conservative views on average, but yeah, to each their own. Where can people get hold of you, and what's your socials and all that?
So my TikTok is Reece Talking. My Instagram is Reece Talking with an additional G. And then my YouTube, my longer form content, more stuff like this, is Reece Carlton. So Reece and then Carlton. And then Reece is spelled Reece. Or you can type in Reece Talking on YouTube as well. It should come up. And then, yeah, I mean, I got X as well, but I don't really use it too much. But, yeah.
Yeah, top man. Reece, thanks very much for the chat.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it a lot.
So if you made it this far, I just want to say thank you for listening. If you could all like, share, and subscribe, it will mean the world to me. Leave a comment too. I'll make sure that I read all of them. On top of that, if you're a fan of the show and you enjoy it, please leave a 5-star review. Every time that I do an episode on Muslims or I do an episode on Zionists, I get a lot of people from these groups purposely trying to lower the rating, lower the score. So if you are enjoying the content and you're finding value from this, please give me a good rating. It does help with pushing the podcast out there. Anyways, enough from me. I hope to see you next time. All the best.